Welcome back. Our discussion of the day is paint over spray. Now, if you tuned into part one, and yes, I will have the link below, you don't actually have to watch part one because I'm going to repeat this stuff in this video. Because this video, we're going to do a deep dive down that rabbit hole, and I'm going to try to dissect this world, this topic of paint over spray that seems like a very simple topic that gets complex very quickly, very easily, because there's so many moving parts to it. For example, not all paint over spray is created equal. There's endless types of paint, endless types of ways in which to get the paint on your car. It's unwanted. Your car is different. It's unique. The color is unique. Where the paint overspray lands will be unique, as in the materials of your car are unique. You've got paint, you've got glass, you've got black vinyl trim, you've got some rubber gaskets, maybe you've got some chrome, you've got the wheels, you've got the tires, you've got the paint, you've got the glass, and I know some of that was a repeat, but so I'm trying to illustrate the components of your car as well as the materials of your car. This is where a lot of people do not realize, oh my gosh. For example, let me even go further down that rabbit hole. We have these things called the windshield wipers. Those are some intricate pieces of your car. You get some paint overspray on that. Do you think you're going to use the clay bar, the traditional approach to removing overspray off your car? Do you think you're going to finesse that in your wiper blades? Oh, I know, we'll just replace those. Well, I promise you, yes, that's a solution. Secondly, there's going to be a lot of intricate parts of your car that a clay bar just will not suffice. So let's work our way down that rabbit hole, and I'm going to show you some of the things that I use to deal with the different components, the different materials of your car. First, how do I identify overspray? Well, you can see it, hear it, and feel it. Sometimes based on your car and based on the overspray, you can actually do all three things. What do I mean by that? For example, I have a white car. It has white overspray on it. I cannot see the white overspray sitting on my white paint. I can only feel it and hear it. But let's say it was a black car with white overspray, then I could do all both. I could see it, I could hear it, I could feel it. But just because you can feel it and hear it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just overspray. It might actually be what's called bonded contaminants. So let me digress for a moment. What are bonded contaminants? Well, you have this stuff called pollution. I'm going to keep this very simple. You have pollution in the air. Pollution is made up of endless forms of airborne pollutants. You don't know what it is exactly, but it settles on your car somehow. And some of those particles of that airborne pollution will begin to bond to your paint, and it will create a texture feel to your paint. Now, as you rub your hand across the paint, you're going to hear that. You're going to feel it. Your paint should feel like waxed glass, silky smooth. You should not hear your paint. You should only see your paint. So that's one way to tell that A, you might have some paint overspray on it, or B, you might actually have both paint overspray as well as bonded contaminants. Or I guess there's a C, which is maybe no paint overspray, just bonded contaminants. Well, my default to removing it is this thing called a clay bar. Now, before I get too far down that wormhole of clay bars, because I've got endless versions for you to see, just accept that there's two ways in which to remove overspray, mechanically or chemically. So mechanically, like for example, we have a razor blade here. I can use that on the glass. I don't want to use it anywhere else. Glass only. We have a clay bar like this. That's mechanically. The razor bar is mechanically, meaning you have to manually, mechanically abrade it away, wear it away, scrape it away. This is what's called a clay mitt. It's a polymer, which is a glorified name for a rubber type of material, and it essentially responds and reacts and operates the same way a clay bar does. Now, the simplest of all answers is chemically, but because not all overspray is created equal, you just don't know. For me in my world, my default is going to be two products. One is a clay bar. You really don't have to overthink it. Are they all created equally? No, they're not. But once again, you don't have to totally overthink it. Check the links below because they do come in a kit. So you can get a clay bar, a clay lube, all in a self-contained kit, and it's a very simple solution to your problem. But I like the Q7 detailer because, well, I already use it. I already love it. It's very versatile. I can use it as a clay lube. It's waterborne technology, so I can reduce it down, custom blend it with straight tap water, and I can make my own blend, so I can be very economical, very efficient, very versatile. Because you're going to need some kind of lubricant, which literally can be as simple as straight tap water. In this case, I have distilled water. Now, in order to use it, you spray your paint because these are tacky or sticky naturally. They will not slide across your paint unless you have some kind of lubricant. Now, there's many keyboard jockeys out there will tell you that if you use a clay bar without a dedicated clay lube, you're going to scratch your paint. Well, I've got news for you. You're going to do some kind of scratching, and I should probably clarify that for you. It's really abrading. You're going to do some type of abrading to your paint pretty much any time. Why? Because once again, not all pollution is created equal. Not all paint overspray is created equal. So you never know what you're going to get until you're getting it. Just accept that the more you rub, the harder you rub, the more likely you're going to abrade your car paint, which is a whole nother can of worms. But I default to this because it is a needed tool. Regardless of your situation, all that's needed is a car. You know why? Because everywhere you drive, there's going to be some form of air pollution. There's going to be tailpipe emissions. There's going to be brake dust that gets slung up and floats around your car and settles on your car. And those particles will settle on your paint and they will become a permanent fixture. It's called bonded surface paint contaminants, which is a glorified way of saying pollution. So this will solve a couple things. One, you're going to need it no matter what in order to remove those paint pollutants, bonded contaminants. Also, if you do have paint overspray, it can also remove that. But a little asterisk, which is this: not all pollutants, not all paint overspray is created equally. So therefore, you may have to rub a lot in order to break it down, shear it down, wear it down, remove it, whatever you want to call it. But you need some form of lubricant in order to slide this back and forth. Now, when you first do it, it's going to be very disturbing for you because you're going to hear some noise. What kind of noise? Well, let me show you what kind of noise. I'm going to pick a spot. Hear that? So at the beginning, it will sound very disturbing. But the more you rub, the more that noise goes away. The easier it is to slide across and back and forth on your paint. And just FYI, for all you YouTube detailers out there that have learned how to talk the talk but have never actually walked the walk, and for you listening, they'll tell you never go in a circular pattern because circular marks are going to create swirl marks, and swirl marks are hard to remove, or circular scratches are hard to remove versus vertical or horizontal. That's just not true. And I challenge anyone to show up and prove it to me, because while you're here showing up, proving it to me, I'm going to show you why it's a load of crap, which is why no one's going to show up and prove it to me. It's just not true. So you can rub in whatever direction you want. The point is the more you rub, the harder you rub, based on the pollutants, based on the overspray, you're gonna do some type of damage. And I hate using that term because you're gonna go into freak out mode. But if you don't remove it, guess what? Every time you wash your car, you're gonna feel that grit. Every time you wax your car, guess what? You're waxing over that grit. It's unwanted. So you're just gonna have to kind of accept it. But that's where polishing comes in, which is a whole nother video series. But just, that's a little asterisk there. I wanted to clarify that for you because there's a lot of just bad information that circulates on the internet. Point being, you rub until you've achieved desired results. But that is the solution using the clay bar. Now the clay bar will work on any surface, well, on any surface that you can get it to work on, which is usually reduced down to hard, smooth, or mostly smooth type surfaces. Glass, yes, it's safe for glass. It's not going to scratch the glass. Will it abrade your paint eventually? Yes, it will. Will it abrade your glass? No, it will not. Carbon fiber. I have carbon fiber on this car. Carbon fiber roof, side mirrors. Carbon fiber is clear coated just like the clear coat on your paint. I can use it on that. But let's, for example, like rubber trim. Rubber trim, no matter how much I jizz it up, it's just gonna wanna grip and grab. So it's not gonna prove very effective. Also, you'll notice that on those wheels, look how intricate that is. Do you think you're gonna wanna try to remove overspray with a clay bar like this? It's gonna be very dicey. Never mind the rubber. So you've got the rubber, you've got the intricacies of the sidewall, never mind the tread itself. So there's a lot of materials that you're gonna run into. We've got the headlights, we've got the side marker lights. Just know that anywhere that you can get this to slide with a lubricant, you can use it. But since not all materials are created equal, that's where you're gonna have to check and verify your results. So on paint, like light colored paint, it's about as easy as it gets to work on. It's going to be a non-issue because you're actually not going to see the abrasions that you're introducing into your paint. Once again, a video for another time. But on black paint, you may going to want to see it. But just know that once you clay your car, the rule is you need to follow up with some kind of wax in order to reapply that protection that most people want on their car paint versus not want it. So just know that. Now let's go even deeper down that wormhole. Let's talk about the different materials of your car. So as you've seen, I showed you the glass. Because glass is such a different material, you can actually whip out a razor blade and you can use it on the glass. The problem is you've got some materials, paint, the trim, the molding, that you in fact can damage if you get careless with it. But you will find that with water and a razor blade that it is easy to remove the overspray. No, the razor blade is not going to scratch your glass. I do not recommend a razor blade anywhere else. Is it possible, like humanly possible, to scratch your glass with a razor blade? I imagine somehow you could if you decide to go into moronic mode. I personally have never had the pleasure or displeasure. You just straight against the glass and you just scrape. Hear that? I know that sounds disturbing, but I know through experience it's not scraping or scratching my glass. It's simply shearing off that paint overspray. And it is actually quicker than using the clay bar. But I have a very steady hand because what will happen is you'll become hyper-focused and be like, oh, I want to hurry and get this off. And then you're going to jab it into the side of the molding. And then you're going to be severely disappointed. And that disappointment is going to last a very long time, probably the life of your car. We don't want that. So if you don't have a steady hand and you have a little bit of patience, then reach for your distilled water or whatever lube you want and use it on your glass, because it will in fact remove it off your glass just like it will any other surface. Here I have my carbon fiber roof. You can use it on that. It's clear coated. This is a pretty hard plastic trim piece here. I can get it to slide on that, so it will in fact remove it off of that. Maybe. Why do I say maybe? Because this trim, this molding here could actually be porous. It may actually stain it or kind of embed into that molding a little bit more than it will on the harder surfaces like the clear coat or the glass. So that's where we get into the world of chemicals. This is the part where a lot of you will go into freak out mode. So I challenge you, go into freak out mode. First choice, rubbing alcohol or isopropyl alcohol, 70%. Let's see, because like I said, not all overspray is created equally. Here we have some overspray. I do not really hear it diminishing, and I still feel it. So alcohol proves to be mostly ineffective. But wait for it, there's more, because we have The acetone. I know, acetone. So use this at your own risk. Personally, I've never had a problem with it, but I live in California, a highly regulated state. So as a rule, everything in life has been dumbed down or watered down. In this case, acetone may not be the acetone that you buy in your state or your part of the country. In my part of the country, it's never been a problem. What you're looking for is discoloration or the softening of your paint. That's what you're testing for. You're also testing to see if it will remove the overspray, because you may find that the clay bar is just so difficult to work with that you may say, like, you know what, I'm willing to risk it. Let's test the acetone. So that's what I do, and that's what I'm going to do. So let me pick a spot where I know there's some overspray, and let's see if it removes it. I'm going to actually pick a bigger spot because I think it is removing it, and I really want to test. So what I would be looking for is discoloration or the softening of my paint, which is doing neither. But it's also not removing the, hear that? Okay, it didn't do anything. So let's ditch the acetone, which also means that if that acetone is not going to remove it off of my clear coat, then the likelihood of it removing off of the porous materials like the trim work in those types of areas is also going to be slim to nil also. And Slim's out of town, so chances are it ain't going to work, which is why sometimes you just have to accept the limitations of the moment. You may not be able to remove the overspray from every part of your car. So I've just tried to chemically remove it. I'm certainly not going to take the razor blade to my clear coat. That would in fact damage it. Since I've determined that the chemical is not going to remove it, I'm going to have to default back to mechanical type of removal. So I'm going to switch to what's called a clay mitt. Generally, they have this rubberized material on the one side and a microfiber material on the other side. This is very effective at removing bonded paint contaminants as well as overspray as a rule. Now, my default is this. These, in my opinion, tend to abrade your paint quicker or easier or more than a clay bar. So if I had the choice, I would default to a clay bar. These are easier to work with because you can, well, they mold exactly to your hand. So whether you put your hand inside of it, if it's one of those, or you just lay your hand on top of it. Now this one I've had for a very long time. It's had lots of uses, but what I want to do is just show you. This is my CSI waterless solution. There's a whole nother video on that because you need to lubricate this also. And you can hear that noise. And I got to keep rubbing until I don't hear the noise. Less and less noise. So this area here is removed. I'm good to go. And you just work your way through the rest of your car, not through, but on top of it. Once again, it's suitable, really any material that you can get this to rub back and forth. Paint, glass, chrome, hard plastic, smooth plastic, you're safe and good to go. But you do need to check your results because based on the material, it's going to incur certain unwanted things the more you have to rub and the more pressure you use. You don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. You can allow the tool to do it and shear it down, or you can apply some pressure. That's just where you'll have to finesse you in your moment based on the situation of your work. With that said, boys and girls, you have many options in which to deal with paint overspray. I hope I've clarified some major points for you. You can see my different arsenal lined up here. I should probably add the chemicals to that equation because you just don't know what's going to work. Most of you will not want to use the chemicals because you'll be too afraid to even test it. So you're going to have to default to something mechanically, like one of these little beauties here. Always check the links below. It'll take you to these products that I recommend. It'll take you to my website where I go into greater detail about this process. By all means, leave me your comments. Let me know the one single thing you learned in the video, if anything. By all means, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. You can hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get alerts every time I upload a new video. With that said, we'll see you in the next video.